Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Yes, no. Looking forward to today's
Mhm.
episode.
Oh man, is it, but you say, oh yeah. It's a bit delayed here. I was like, I feel like I'm on the news from like
Oh,
asking you a
sorry,
question.
it's like one of those quick. Yeah, no. Sorry, no.
And
It's possibly just me, just absolutely tired of just traveling around. But no, I'm looking forward to. I've
mm.
literally, for context of this episode of talking about the X films, I watched both of them,
Oh,
X and Pearl, back to back yesterday, so
yeah,
they are super
a good,
fresh
a
in my
good double
mind.
bill. Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you watch them
Um.
chronologically by any chance, or did you watch them
No, no,
release
no,
order?
no. I was watching with my girlfriend. I thought
Mm.
that may have confused her because she didn't
Oh, right,
realize,
okay.
because she would have been like, "Why? What is this time travel? Is this like?" Because
All
obviously it's Mia
right.
Goth playing the same
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had to watch X and then explain the trivia behind her playing two
Yeah.
characters, and she didn't understand. She
Yeah.
thought she. It took her a while to figure out that I meant the actress was playing two characters, not as in those are the
Mm.
same people, because she was really confused and thought there was some sort of
I see.
time
Okay,
travel element involved. So I
okay.
think chronologically it would have been a bit more confusing.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
you. Well, yeah,
So
that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because Maxine has released, we will be talking about the X trilogy as a whole and have a review for Maxine as well to sort of cap off that trilogy. But first, uh, me and Kyle are going to talk about the Gladiator II trailer because it just dropped. Massive, obviously,
yeah.
views. Everyone is very intrigued by this Gladiator film. Um, and it's actually caused a bit of, I don't know, it's
Did you
been
see? Did
I
you
don't
see the
know,
YouTube facts?
controversial in a weird way. This is what I want to talk about. Right,
Is
so
that? Yeah, I just saw
let's just
this.
get into the basic things of the basic plot of what we get from the Gladiator trailer, the Gladiator 2 trailer, is that Paul Mescal, who I think is playing what's his character's name here, Lucius, watched Maximus, rebel against the Empire, and spoilers for the first Gladiator, but I think they show it in this trailer anyway. Yes, he saw the death of Maximus in the Colosseum, and that sort of inspired him to sort of fight against Rome and wherever he's
Yeah.
from. We don't actually know whereabouts he's from. I maybe somewhere in Greece, perhaps. Who knows? But he is sort of inspired against to fight against the Roman Empire, and specifically has some sort of animosity with Pedro Pascal's Marcus character. We do
Hmm.
not. I presume, like you see in the trailer, because the trailer does show a lot.
Well, yeah.
Perhaps
Yes.
he obviously leads an attack against Lucius's home, and maybe gets him captured and kills someone he cares about. Um, Also in the mix, you have Joseph Quinn playing Emperor Geta, along with Fred Heckinger, who also plays Emperor Caracalla. Who I did a quick Google search of this guy because I was interested if are these based on real figures. Emperor Caracalla is actually known to be one of the most bloodthirsty and insane of Roman's
Sorry,
emperors, and
which
kind of
character is
near.
that? Is that Joseph Quinn's
He's the
character?
no, he's the
That's the.
Fred
Yeah.
Heckinger
Are they
character, the one who
brothers?
looks kind of yeah. I think. I mean, yeah, maybe. I'm unsure of what they, because I know Rome has had emperors who kind of rule at the same time. So unsure if they're brothers. They look like brothers, so probably that's probably what they're going for.
Hmm.
Um, and so this is kind of set, but kind of close to the downfall of Rome. I don't think quite. At that point
Hmm.
yet, but I think time-wise we're kind of nearing that point, and that's why I also have Denzel Washington's Macrinus character, who's kind of wanting to push the fall of Rome, it seems, and use sort of
Yeah.
Not Pedro Pascal, Paul Mescal as a vessel for that rebellion. Now, Kyle, what did you think of the trailer? Because look,
I mean,
I'll say this first.
yeah.
I thought it looked cool. It looked cool production wise. I mean, Ridley Scott. Look, we had problems with Napoleon, but production
Yeah.
wise, he always knows what he's doing. It looks great.
No, that's true.
It
That's
looks
true.
convincing at that part. At that part, but do
Um.
you seem to have issues with the
No,
trailer, or?
I don't have it. The biggest thing that we said with the issue with the trailer was I was like, I felt I've
Mm-hmm,
seen Gladiator 2. That was my biggest
mm-hmm,
issue with the trailers because I think it's a 3 minute trailer. Now that's quite a lot
which
for
is
a
never a good
trailer.
thing. It's not,
It's just
if
never
a
a good
trailer's three
thing.
minutes long, that's not a good thing.
That's
Yeah.
such not a good thing. I mean, right,
Mm,
spectacle wise, I'm like, this is going to be something to see in the big screen.
Oh
The,
yeah,
the naval
IMAX. Yeah.
Coliseum battle, I'm going to be like, I will go and see
Yeah.
it just for that because that is,
Mm-hmm,
pardon me, sick. That's just incredible. I think that's going to look
mm-hmm,
so cool. And like we said, Ridley Scott, everybody has a love hate relationship with him. Napoleon sure it did
I
feel
do.
that you need a
Yes.
history class for that character. Do I have hope
Mhm,
that this is because this is his own story more?
mhm,
But then I remember
mhm,
Prometheus, which was a thing based off his own story, and I'm a
mhm.
bit like, but then The Last Duel was like fantastic film that was
You loved the last year, yeah. I
and
really
then
liked it as well, yeah.
but then you got 3000 Years of Longing. I'm so like
Mhm. Oh,
I'm
that wasn't
like
that was George Miller. I think
that was
that was
George
George
Miller.
Miller. I think
Sorry,
you're
that was
thinking
George
of
Miller.
you're
I'm
right.
getting confused. No, sorry, yeah. No, Ridley Scott. Last one was Last Kingdom. The Last Duel, which I was like, that was incredible.
Mhm.
Napoleon. That was his last one. Sorry, I was like, I was like, really long. Do we know the runtime for Gladiator 2? I feel it's gonna be quite a meaty one.
No, no, I assume it'll probably go 3 hours because Ridley
Remind
Scott's
me.
films always seem to be approaching 3 hours now.
Remind me what was the budget for this thing? Because I remember you commenting on this a few months
We
ago.
don't actually know, like, there has been reports that it's, like, around it's gone ridiculously over budget, it's gonna be 300 plus million
Yeah,
dollars. We don't actually know, I mean, we hear reports all the time of all sorts of, um yeah, like, budgets going crazy and all sorts,
yeah.
but they aren't actually true. What's the most recent one I saw that someone made a ridiculous statement about the budget and that wasn't true? I think it might have been Deadpool and Wolverine. Someone said that was about $300 million, and they had to come out and be like, "No, there's
No,
like 100 million plus off for that
no.
film."
I'm
So uh, I
um.
hope it's not $300 million because otherwise you're going to need a ridiculous amount to break even. I will say this though, the writers on this interesting pair of writers here.
Yeah.
One is David Scarpa, and he did write Napoleon. He was, I think,
Mm.
maybe the sole writer on that film, which isn't great. However, there's two writers on this. He's teamed up with Peter Craig, who did write the screenplay for the Batman and the story for Top Gun Maverick.
Oh,
So,
excellent.
uh, those are
Yeah.
it'll
No,
be
I mean,
interesting. I think. Uh,
yeah. My biggest issue with Napoleon was that it was very much centered on one character. We needed to know more about this one character. The idea of Rome as a city, as a timeline, there's a lot more able to play
mhm,
because it's not as
yeah.
it's Rome. Rome's more of a background character than Napoleon was a
Uh-huh.
central character in his own
Mhm,
film.
mhm,
I'm looking
mhm,
forward to this now. I'm gonna be completely honest. I have not seen
mhm.
Gladiator one.
Wow, okay. Well,
Yeah, I've
well, there
known
you
for
go, right, so
years the
yeah,
conclusion about Maximus and all that, which I think is probably
mhm,
why I've been like not reluctant to see it, but I'm kind of like, well, I'm not,
mhm,
I'm not going in for the question of how does the story pan out because I know how the story pans out. So I've been
mhm,
kind of waiting,
mhm.
and I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna watch it definitely this year. I think it's on
Obviously
some
before it
form
comes
of
out, yeah.
streaming at the moment. And I do
It's
look
on,
at
I
it,
think
and
it's on
I do
everything, mate.
go,
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm a bit like,
mhm,
as much as everybody's like, it's just sequels, remakes, reboots. I'm like, yeah, but
mhm,
when a sequel like Top Gun Maverick comes out and it genuinely pushes
mhm,
cinema to the extreme and makes a really
yeah,
impressive piece of work, I don't mind.
yeah,
I'm a bit like,
yeah.
I have a love hate relationship with Ridley Scott at the moment.
Yes, me too.
If he can pull this out the bag, I think it will be genuinely
Yeah.
incredible. If not, I think
Yeah,
everything's
I
going to
mean,
be mediocre at best.
yeah. Look, also the good thing about Gladiator compared to something like Napoleon is that it's fiction within a non-fiction world with
That's
some
what I'm saying.
non-fiction
Yes.
characters. It is like you have a freedom to do your own thing, which is better than something like Napoleon, which is far too much history for it to be covered in a 2.5 hour film. Um, I like you, Kyle. This is the thing. I say this every year. We review a Ridley Scott film, and I'm like, it's not very good. Hisguchi was genuinely terrible.
Oh, that
Um,
was
I
it.
mean,
That was the
yeah,
film I
that's
was
what you're
trying to
thinking
think
of.
of. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I've
weird. I
never
mean, I
seen
like The
that.
Last Duel. It
I
has some
really
problems, but I
enjoyed The
still
Last
like The
Duel.
Last Duel.
Hmm.
And yeah, Napoleon was a really, really mixed bag for me. But I always give Ridley Scott the benefit of the doubt because he
Yeah.
made some of my favorite films of all time.
No, he did.
And this does look exciting. For some reason, this has a lot of dislikes on YouTube, and everyone seems to be complaining about the song. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. It's a piece of marketing. Don't worry, Jay-Z and Kanye West, No Church of the World is not going to be in the film. Don't be ridiculous. I actually saw a really interesting comparison as someone said, you know, in the Napoleon trailer last year, they played Black Sabbath, but no one seemed to complain about that. Why is everyone complaining about this? it's just
It's
marketing music. It's just because it has lyrics that talk about coliseums and blood. Like,
yeah.
don't be so stupid as to
It just
believe that
happens
that
to
is going to
link up.
play in the
Yeah.
actual film. This isn't
I
Baz
didn't
Luhrmann's The
really.
Great Gatsby, all right?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
Ridley Scott is not that stupid.
That didn't
So,
appeal.
uh,
That didn't even like click in my head. I'm not that much of a music person, so I
no,
wasn't really
but
thinking.
genuinely, if you go on all these comments
Is
and the
that what
reasons
it's
for this,
actually
and
on
just like
about?
everyone is
Really?
complaining about the trailer music, and I'm like, why? It's like people genuinely think there's going to be a soundtrack to this film. No, I think Hans Zimmer's doing the score, by the way, so don't worry about it. Like,
What is
it's
it?
going to be fine. Everyone, calm down.
Yeah,
No.
I'm a bit like, I was trying to
I
see if I
just
could see the comments and all that because I'm really interested. I mean, I did see the whole like more dislikes than like, and I'm a bit like, oh, okay, but
oh,
interesting. I mean, I'm excited. I mean,
interesting.
it is. I'm hyped. I mean, I have to admit, the small child who loves naval stuff, just bear in mind, I went to see Battleship because I was like, it's got boats in it, and that's like what sold me on that horrendous film. So when I saw like that
Yeah.
naval battle, and when when I discovered it was a real thing, I was like,
Mm.
holy shit! Yes, I want to. I kind of want to see
um,
this in the cinema.
right. So, question. We always bring this up, but
Do we?
I have no idea what this thing's gonna make. Regardless
Right
of if it's good or bad,
now.
it has a
Mm,
lot of traction online. Gladiator is a very, very famous
yep.
film. It's also kind of cross
Um.
generation. It's one of those cross generational films where like your parents know it and you know it, and it's
Yep.
popular amongst all a lot of ages. So I don't know what this thing's going to make. I would be very interested to see how. Look, let's say it's good. Let's say it's just like good, like
Mhm.
it's like a 70 out of 100 on Metacritic or something like that. It's got a good critic score. Like what we thinking on the money on this thing?
I I would say I would say a comfortable 700,
Oh wow,
and
wow, up there. Okay, yeah.
I would say a comfortable 700 is where I'm going to put Gladiator 2
Mm-hmm.
because you have to think of the stardom Paul Mescal has these days, and
Mm-hmm.
he's going to bring in
Denzel,
people who will not
Pedro.
watch that. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
That's true.
Joseph Quinn's getting a lot of love off of the back of Quiet Place Day One.
True.
It's just it's getting these stars then that are people are gonna be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I like watching his stuff. I might go and see it.
Mm-hmm.
Not just on
Mm-hmm.
top of the stuff, but then it does give the idea that it could be big epic.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it could be because I don't know when what else is it what's it releasing with because yeah, it's that or
I think
Wicked.
Wicked is releasing around the
Yeah,
same time.
it's no on the same
Yeah.
day. It's the same day they're both
Oh,
tracked
are
to
they
release
doing the
on.
same day? Wow.
Yeah,
I think
because
it's both like I think it's Thanksgiving
I saw
weekend.
somebody ask Paul Mescal in an interview or something. It's like, it's like Barbenheimer, and I'm like, I hate now that two things are released on the same day. It's like, oh, it's
I know.
Barbenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
Yeah.
do feel that I think it could 700. If it goes above 700, I will be well impressed.
Mm.
Well
Oh
impressed.
yeah. Yeah, it's a mystery to me because it's like this is like to me. It's before Top Gun Maverick, months before that came out. I was like, I have no idea what the figure in this thing is going to be because I have no idea if it's a sequel that people don't care about and have completely lost interest in Top Gun, or if Top Gun is like an established, like beloved thing, cross generational thing, which it turned out to be, and one of
Yeah.
the biggest films of all time. Now, do I think Gladiator will reach those numbers? No, I don't think so. But I think this will be Ridley Scott's biggest film in a long time. Um, Napoleon made about $220 million.
Mhm.
House of Gucci
Mhm.
did okay considering its budget. Last Joe did flop hard. Alien
Was
Covenant as
last
well didn't do
year
great.
when? Yeah, Alien
That was
Covenant,
around COVID times,
Prometheus.
to be fair.
Yeah, it was.
So
What was Prometheus?
I
Did Prometheus do okay? Let's
I
check.
think Prometheus did pretty well actually. I think that made around $400 million. I think that did okay. With Gladiator 2, I do have that belief that I think it will at least break even. If those budget reports aren't true, and if it's like a
Yeah.
$200 million budget, then I think it will break even. But I don't know. Will Wicked take away a lot of screens for it? Will Wicked, take a lot of the traction off it?
I
Wicked's
don't
pretty
know.
huge.
No, but what's the thing is, what's going to do it for people for Wicked,
Mhm, mhm,
is that they're going to be like, here, this is a part one. Maybe don't go and see it straight
mhm.
away because they're not marketing it as a part one,
They're not
which is
marketed
what
as
they've
part
done,
one, yeah.
which they did with June. And I think the
Mhm,
difference is with June is that Wicked is
mhm,
established as like a big musical, and you can go watch the entire
mhm,
thing.
mhm,
Um, I think people will be a wee bit like, oh, it's not the whole film. That's gonna be a bit of a gub. I
mhm,
don't think it'll have the
mhm. Yeah.
rewatchability
Mhm,
that
mhm,
something as epic as hopefully as epic as Gladiator 2 will have. I think Gladiator
mhm,
2 will maybe make the money on the fact it's rewatchable and people might go
mhm,
here, going back and see it. Because let's be honest, the Top Gun Maverick, if everybody who
mhm,
just saw that went to see it once, you could probably scrape
mhm.
off a good 100, 200 million, because the amount of people who I
Yeah,
know personally,
yeah.
you saw
Mhm.
that movie a
I
good,
saw a lot.
good, good few
I
times.
saw a film a lot
I
in cinema,
I
so yeah.
saw a good few times in cinema as well,
Mhm.
and I'm like, if it's one of those things, is that I would be really really interested to see that if you took Top Gun
Uh,
Maverick and went right, initial viewings of every person who saw it, not including rewatches, what would the box office be
mhm,
compared to what we got? And I really do think that compared to Wicked, which is not probably going to have the rewatchability as um
mhm.
is Gladiator 2, that I
It's
think
Gladiator
Gladiator
2,
2
yeah.
may steal it. Yeah.
Well, here's right. We'll quickly move on for this, but I do have one more thing, right? Because you love the musical Wicked, right? You've seen it on Broadway,
I
right?
really enjoy the musical Wicked. Yeah.
You really enjoy it. Now, I'm not in the Wicked sphere. I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't really know much
I'll
about
blare
Wicked,
defying
although I
gravity.
really love The
I can
Wizard
do
of
it.
Oz. But you could do it. Like, I don't know if people who've seen Wicked are really looking forward to this film. I assume
I
everyone who's
will
seen it
not
already
see
knows who
this
is going to
film.
go see them.
I
You're
don't
not going to go see it.
No.
You think it looks bad.
This is my thing with I kind of noticed this with like musicals recently, that when they said they were doing a Hamilton musical, I
Mhm.
was like, don't. But then they were like, it's just
Yeah.
the musical but filmed, and I was like, class,
Yeah,
because
it's just recording. Yeah.
that keeps the thing of it. The
Mhm.
It's exactly the same with the Mean Girls musical and Hairspray, that I feel it just loses
Mhm.
something that it doesn't transfer off stage, right? Dear
Okay.
Evan Hansen, that is a great
Mhm.
musical,
Yeah. Okay.
horrific film. Plus, they should have recast the actor because he's like 40 at that point.
Yeah. It looked bad. Yeah.
There's
It looked bad.
something
Yeah.
really great about the musical, which is probably why it's
Mhm.
one of the longest running musicals of all time. And I think there's a reason
Mhm.
why there hasn't been a film adaptation for such a long time, because people have gone,
Mhm.
maybe it doesn't translate as much into.
Mhm.
It's like the whole, because obviously Wizard of Oz is so weird and colorful, and the stage background and production does a lot to do it. But then your kind of imagination
Mhm.
takes over and fills in those
Mhm.
gaps.
Yeah.
And then
I
watching the
mean, look, when we
trailer, I'm
talk
like,
about
it's a lot
yeah.
in your
I
face.
mean, recently, like you're saying, all these big broad musicals that have went to cinema have not done well. You want to talk about Cats? You mentioned Dear Evan Hansen. Even the remake of West Side Story, which I love, didn't
That was
do
a great.
well.
I think that was a good.
Those are three big, well-known properties
Yeah.
that didn't do well in the cinema.
See, I think West Side Story for me was the best one,
Mhm.
because it had Spielberg behind it, and Spielberg's kind of
Mhm.
love for cinema
Yeah.
making as well. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
after watching The Fablemans, I kind of like review every film that he's made and kind of be like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like, I watched the trailer for it, and my dad is a big
Mm.
musical kind of guy. I watched trailer for it, and we both were kind of like, all right, like,
Yeah.
it's one of these things.
Pro
I'm like, would I rather
yeah.
go and see it in the Broadway, the
Yeah.
West End, or
Probably. Probably.
it's like that. It's that sort of
Yeah.
thing. I'm definitely,
From an
yeah. I'm not.
outsider, for me, the film just looks
I
ugly.
know
Like the
yeah.
visual effects and the color grading of it look terrible.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm not particularly
I would
interested.
highly recommend
Um,
the musical. I think you would enjoy the actual musical, because I think
I would
it,
love to
it
see the musical on
it
Broadway.
doesn't.
Yeah,
Songs in film don't do not beat the actual hearing of the instruments being
on
played.
in Broadway. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not I'm not gonna see it. Like, you can sorry, I really wanted the review for that, but I won't because I just
Well, okay, okay. Well,
yeah,
we've got a
sorry.
boycotter over here.
Yeah, you can go
Easy,
see it if
easy.
you want. Go for it, kid.
unless, unless I don't know, they release another trailer and they've fixed all the problems with it, then
Yeah,
I
not a
don't I don't know
chance.
about that. But right, let's move on. We've talked about
Yeah.
that enough. Let's talk about the X series. So
Yes.
the X franchise, all written and directed by Ty West, kind of each one coming out in the past 2 years practically.
Yeah,
Um,
2012,
and
2022. Yep.
well, yeah, in the States they got Pearl and X in the same year, but for us it was 2022, 2023, 2024. I don't really
Oh.
know what the hell happened with the release of Pearl here. It got for some reason no one wanted to distribute it here, which I think because
Okay.
maybe it's just less sellable as the other two.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not what it's kind of not really like those two. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So
Yeah.
let's. Do you want to start off with the chronological beginning, or do you want to start off with the release beginning, Ken?
I say go to release beginning because I do
Okay.
feel that I don't know. For
Mhm,
me, I think Pearl makes more sense having seen
mhm.
the
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
X.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. I get you. Sort of like watching the original trilogy first and then going back to the prequels kind of makes more
Yeah,
sense
no,
because
it
otherwise,
kind
if
of
you
makes more
start with the
sense.
prequels, you know who Darth Vader is. Uh,
Yeah,
you
no,
can't really start with the prequels.
it's
Yeah.
exactly like that because the
Yeah.
like that's what I'm saying. I think chronologically it ruins a lot of the suspense of X
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
then you would
Okay.
realize
Yeah.
who's
Okay.
who.
That's fair. You
Yeah,
know who's who. Fair. 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 So yeah, this was set in 1979, and it's this group of porn filmmakers and actors and actresses go off and rent this place in Texas, this Texas farm to make this porn film called I think it's literally just called The Farm Girl, with
the
Mia
farmer's
Goth playing
daughters.
Farmer's Daughter. Sorry, and you
Recently
have
seen.
I recently watched
Yeah,
a few
it's in my
with Mia
head.
Goth playing Maxine, who's sort of the main porn star of these film. And here as well, you've got Jenna Ortega's Lorraine, Kid Cudi's Jackson, Brittany Snows Bobby Lynn, and Martin Henderson's Wayne. So they all go to this farm to shoot this porn film, but find that the people who own the farm are very very strange
Yeah,
customers, very weird, very proper Christian prudish types. And then of course, when the owners see what's going on, they sort of release a rampage on these porn
yeah. I
filmmakers.
mean,
So Kyle, I don't really know what you think of. I know you like
this is the
Tex, but I
thing.
don't really know kind of your.
We had a
Uh
brief text message about it. I have to say that the way it starts with the kind of
mhm.
the cop walking around the scene and all the bodies are
Yeah, it
covered,
starts at the end
and
with the yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh right, okay. I was like, that's kind of
Mhm.
cool because I just love the idea they keep the bodies covered because they don't want to tell you what happens and everything.
Yeah,
Obviously,
who's
I
alive
knew
and whatever.
Maxine was coming out, and I was like, right, I
Mhm.
feel he's gonna be the final. I have a feeling that this is gonna go this way. I
Yeah,
don't really know
yeah.
what, and because I knew Pearl's a thing, and I was like, right, I kind of have an idea of what's going on, but I don't know the story. And
Mhm,
yeah, I really enjoyed. See, I feel when we go on to Pearl, I think I misled you a wee bit with what I was my
mhm,
conversations about it over the
mhm.
text was because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed both these movies because I thought they were just
Uh-huh.
so bizarre and weird in their unique ways.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
this one, like I said, was very kind of in my head. I'm thinking like really traditional 70s, 80s slasher flick. Group
Yeah,
of
yeah.
group of
I'm going for
horny
that
kids
stuff,
go
yeah.
to a lake, go to a
Mhm.
campsite. You know,
Mhm.
something happens.
Yeah.
Um, I I liked the idea of the kind of the mix of the characters where Maxine just wants to become famous and all that she doesn't
Yeah.
care how she's gonna get there. Her boyfriend is her boyfriend's Wayne. Yeah, her boyfriend Wayne is
Yeah.
the kind of like he's a bit like I was like are you all what I'm thinking? You know, do you really care about
Mhm.
Maxine? Or are you trying to get the money? And then you got the kid who's like making the film. He's like, no, I see this as a new form of cinema and how it's going to break
Yeah, yeah, it
boundaries.
was interesting.
And
Mhm.
they're like, oh, this is going to be it's going to be
Mhm.
like the direct to video market. And Wayne's like, this is going to be breakthrough.
Mhm.
And I'm like, hell, he was right because
Mhm.
80s, you know, that's when video
Yeah.
shops started having adult sections
Yeah,
for the
video
kind of
nasties and all the adult sections and
and
stuff like that, yeah.
I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay, I like the film. And then like during the kind of the filming of it. Jenna Ortega's character kind of had that kind of mild little like story bit of
Mhm.
being a bit of like I don't think how kind of prudish she was, but she was obviously a bit more. She was like nicknamed Church Mouse because she was very small and she was kind of like
Mm, yeah.
there. And
Mhm.
then on the flip side,
Mhm.
Howard and Pearl,
Yeah.
like that Pearl threw me as a character in this film because I really
Mhm.
didn't know anything about her. All I knew,
Mhm.
I knew two things before entering this movie. One was
Mhm.
that I knew just from fact Mia Goth played both,
Yeah.
but you can't tell. You cannot tell. It's
Yeah, it's hard to
amazing.
tell.
It's so
I remember
hard.
seeing it for the first time and being like, "Wait, is that me and got like I was like, "Wait a minute, is
It's the
that's the same person?" It
voice.
took a while to
Uh
get there.
huh.
Yeah, it's the voice is
It
very
was like
good, yeah.
the voice and the
Uh-huh.
eyes, and then that's the only thing I knew. Um,
Mhm.
and I knew the second film was Pearl's origin, so I knew there's something a bit iffy on
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
what really surprised me is that for
Mhm.
most of her head, it's like sex driven, and this
Yeah,
weird,
yeah, yeah.
like trying to relive of her youth, and she's almost
Yeah,
begging her.
yeah.
I don't know what age they would be, like
Yeah.
80s,
Well, y
90s.
I think yeah, probably. Well, I'd probably say if they were like the first one's set in world end of World War One, about 1918,
1918, and
and
this is 79,
so
so a good
this is
60.
61 years later. So I reckon they'd be in their well into their 80s. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
would say well into the
mm,
80s. And then,
mm.
yeah, it's this kind of like weird drive, and she kind of has this kind of weird, like, she kind of gets a bit kind of frisky with everybody, and she sees something in
Yeah. She
Maxine
yeah,
that,
she sort of sees herself obviously in Maxine,
yeah,
which is kind of
quite
the whole
literally.
meta thing, and that's the kind of weird X. X was such a really pleasant surprise for me when I first when I saw it, because one I love like it's like referential, but referential in like a and not just like it's not just referencing things like Friday the 13th or
Yeah,
Psycho with the old lady killer, although Psycho's not actually an old lady, but or like Texas Chainsaw with a this old farm in Texas
yeah,
and all these sorts and even like kills that resemble like Halloween and Halloween 2 and all that slasher stuff. It's not just that it plays with those references, but it feels like organically like a 70s, late 70s sort of
yeah,
horror film. Like it
yeah.
kind of just has that. I compare it with like Top Gun Maverick, right? Feels like an 80s film, even though it's
Hmm.
like it's got modern spectacle and modern filmmaking techniques. It sort of feels like it's in the 80s with it's just the story and the way it's structured and how cheesy it is and the soundtrack and stuff. This also feels like it's like a late
Yeah,
70s slasher. And dealing with just all the seediness and the
yeah.
final girl and the porn stuff and that weird like story where it's like Pearl and her husband like killing is like a weird like lustful like sexual release for them.
It, it,
It was just really fascinating. I
well,
really thought it was
it's,
really
see,
interesting.
I feel it's
Hmm.
more. I don't agree on the fact that it's for both of them because I think it's,
Mm,
especially after seeing Pearl, I think it's
mm,
Howard's like knowing it's the way to satisfy Pearl in
yeah,
a
yeah.
later stage in life that
Hmm,
he
hmm,
kind of go because I'm always viewing Pearl Howard as like a kind of
hmm.
caretaker for Pearl and her kind of
Yeah,
psychoticness, and it makes me,
yeah,
especially after watching Pearl, I'm like I would really love a film set in the 50s or something
yeah,
where
yeah.
it's like
With the two,
because
well, maybe that's what we'll do
so
next. I
let
don't
me let me
know.
ask you a question here because me and
Mm,
my girlfriend having a wee bit of a argument because I'm pretty sure I'm right because
okay,
so the film guy the no
I'm
no
right.
no
I'm
no
right. Yeah.
it's because later on you do revisit one of the guys, the guy who records the film, I can't remember his name, Jenna Ortega's
Mhm.
boyfriend, Rick or
Yes.
something maybe. Rick, yeah, he gets
Isn't
a
he the
pretty,
first? He's the first to die, isn't he?
he's the
Yeah.
first to die because he starts driving off
Yeah.
and Pearl comes up with the
Mhm.
knife and
Yeah.
does a fairly gruesome kill, um like with his neck and almost kind of ripping the neck off, and it just kind of
Mhm, mhm.
hangs there and such. Um, and then later on, when Genitator's in the basement, you see somebody else hanging up there. That's a
Mm.
previous victim because my girlfriend was confused that she thought that was just Howard bringing the corpse of Rick down. But I was like,
Corpse in.
I'm pretty sure Maxine goes later and sees Rick's body still at the.
Y and still there's still at the front of the house, no?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Or is
still
it
the front of
somewhere
the
else?
car.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So there
I'm
is
pretty sure
definitely
there's someone else in
previous.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're
Mhm.
hanging kind of naked. That's who Jenna Ortega sees, and she does a classic scream. So
Yeah.
that was kind of me. I was
Classic
like,
scream,
oh,
yeah.
I like the idea that this isn't just today. This is
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
maybe a Friday the 13th Texas Chainsaw, and I'm like, right,
Mhm.
okay, so. I like it, and then when we're back in Pearl, I was like, right, okay, so there's history in the middle of this that I'm like,
Yeah. Mhm.
that would be really interesting to see, and I find Howard's character is so unique because, like,
Mhm.
he he do- he's not got a huge like vendetta against most of them. He's just a bit like
Mhm.
there's a great thing as well, which I think I kind of was slowly picking up on is that TV station it's playing through the entire
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
which is this kind of
Yes. Yes.
classic
Yeah.
religious, which I thought
Yeah.
had
The
the
real.
best
Mhm.
twist
Mhm.
at the end of
Mhm.
that, where
Mhm.
there's a channel playing, it's a black and white, it's this preacher, and it's maybe a bit of a
Mhm.
I don't know if it's a cult or something and all like
Mhm.
that kind of religious cult
You're
that he's
very like
pushing
kind of
on.
the yeah. I know the really
Yeah,
big
and he's
evangelical
talking
stuff.
about
Yeah.
porn and how it's ruining everything. And then at the
Mhm.
end, he's like, and he took my sweet girl Maxine, and I was like,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
fully was like, oh shit, that's such a weird
Yeah.
like has
Mhm.
nothing, not really connective to this film. Maybe
Mhm.
hopefully when you
Yeah.
talk about your review, there may be a connection there for the vaccine.
Yeah.
But no, I
Mhm.
was like, great final film. There were some good kills in there. Um,
Mhm.
I I thought Jenny Ortega's death was so sudden because a lot of them are a wee bit more
Yeah.
like
Yeah, you
traditionally
kind of sense where it's
like
you
Wayne's
know
death,
that
where it's like
the
yeah,
cinematographer's gonna die, all
uh-huh.
that stuff. Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Mhm.
Wayne's death where he's, like, peering through these 3 things, I'm like, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
It's like, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
Undertaker just getting shotgunned to the side of the head,
Yeah.
I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's a bit sudden." I like that,
Uh-huh.
and then the kind of final, uh, conflict, I have to admit, I was peeing my pants when, there's a whole thing throughout the film where, like, Wayne's like, I can't have sex. It might kill my heart. My heart might go because the doctor
Mhm.
said it." And they
Mhm.
they do have sex in a really, really
Mhm.
weird scene that I have to
Yeah.
admit, I was having my lunch when this happened. I was like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't." And then later on when he shotguns Jenna Ortega, and then I don't
Mhm.
know if she's fully dead or something, but she just coughs or
Uh-huh.
sponges, and that just sends him. That's it. That's what
Yeah.
scares his heart to the
Yeah.
last moment. And I was
Yeah.
in tears. I was like, that's so
Yeah.
funny how like nothing happened. It was just
Yeah.
her like gagging on their blood, and that just
Uh,
sends
yeah.
Howard to his death. I was like, that's so funny. That was
Yeah.
brilliant.
I
And
do
then
think there's a good sense of humor in all three of these films, actually.
I
There
think
is
there's a
funny
great
stuff
sense of
through it,
humor,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
especially in this in X, I think there's a kind of really just uniqueness of it. And then
Mhm.
um when Pearl goes to shoot Maxine the shotgun and misses and just gets flung
Mhm.
back. I was also
Yeah.
like, just after Howard's like funny death in my eyes and then seeing her
Mhm.
just fly back, I was like in tears. I thought this was so
Mhm.
funny. Just the kind of final 2 minutes. And then Maxine just running her over with the car in reverse.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
just
yeah, it's pretty nasty with the car, yeah, yeah.
flattening the brake.
Yeah.
I liked X because I thought it
Mhm.
is if needed to be, it was a very self-contained horror film where it
Yes, you're right,
had a
yeah,
very
it didn't need any
flesh.
more or any less,
It
yeah.
did. I'm not
Mhm.
saying it didn't need any more, but if it didn't have anything more, I would be like, I'm not feeling that this is like an unfinished story. It gave us
Mhm, yeah.
uh a character. It gives us a story. She, you know, sure, maybe the kind of fame bit wasn't kind of sorted, but maybe it was like, oh, this could have been, you could have added a 2 minute thing at the end of this film to say that she starred in her own movie,
Mhm.
descripting the things that happened in this movie, and that's where she gets
Yeah.
her fame. That could have been really capping it
Mhm.
off if you only made a one film, but you have enough here just to kind of be a really self-contained horror film. And I was like, that's great. And
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
saying I'm disappointed that it was a prequel because we can get right on to Pearl and talk about how that's great.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
no,
yeah,
I really
let's
enjoyed
talk about Pearl.
X.
So this is kind of where it's the origin story of the slasher killer.
Yeah,
Obviously from X. Imagine we got like a prequel to. Actually, we have a lot of horror prequels, don't we? I was gonna say a
I
prequel
say,
to
I
like.
say,
Oh
I
wait, they
say,
all kind of have prequels.
I say that, but there's
uh,
never really, if you're looking at, I mean, the only kind of actual prequel I'm thinking is like the Bates Motel TV show. Like for any of your kind of really traditional things,
yeah, so there's a cycle.
you don't get a
They did
Jason
Texas Chainsaw
Voorhees.
the beginning though.
They did do that,
They
and
did
that
take
was the
change
twist.
at the beginning,
They
yeah.
did, where it was like a
Yeah.
twist. They did a Hannibal, but that's.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, apart from Texas Chainsaw,
Yeah.
which that was a you don't really have a Jason Voorhees because they've all got some sort of mystically uniqueness to
Weird,
them.
weird stuff. But yeah, this is a full through and through following Pearl from her humble origins, let's say. But yeah, Pearl is sort of, if you have X as sort of the classic sort of 70s, 80s slasher, with the
Yeah.
final girl and everything, this is definitely more of a tragedy. This is a much
Yes.
sadder film to me than Pearl, than X, sorry.
X.
And it's like once we're going back in time, we're going to 1918 here, and that's kind of the whole aesthetic changes. It's much more vibrant and colorful, sort of like those
Even
Technicolor films, and like, huh,
the credits. I've got the kind of technical the
yeah,
font from
the
like the
text,
early. I
yeah,
love that the text.
uh-huh, uh-huh. And and this is sort of a credit to Ty West in all three of the films, is that he's able to simulate the period very well and able to have this sort of
Yeah.
not just imitation, it does feel, once again, like with X, it feels like a genuine, like the feel. Maybe this one a bit less so, just because of the way like film camera technology works now, and you can't do like Panavision and Technicolor anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like the closest thing he's sort of getting to those Technicolor golden age Hollywood films, and with that as well, it's very much like, for me, the biggest thing that stood out to me is it's like Sunset Boulevard, really,
Hmm.
where that is sort of a tragedy in itself, with the lead character. Oh my god, I've completely forgotten the lead actress in Sunset Boulevard. That's terrible. But her whole thing is that she's still very delusional. She's a very
Yeah.
delusional figure, and one who's still, she's already attained fame but no longer famous anymore, and sort of kind of gone away because the silent film period ended, and her character is whole still deluded into believing she's the most famous star in the world. Whereas
Yeah.
in here, Pearl believes she is going to be the biggest star in the world, and she
Yeah.
has talent. She's going to get out this farm, but sadly, her circumstances don't allow her to do that. She's forced to look after her father. Her mum
Yeah,
is
because
like proper,
it's
like the mum
set
from
through
Carrie, you know,
very very. I got
um,
strong Carrie vibes
very,
from this film. Um,
yeah,
because it's
very like
set through
strong,
the
religious, and
Spanish
holding her back.
flu. Is it the Spanish flu
Yeah,
or
the
is it
Spanish
the?
flu's happening at that
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
obviously they're all wearing masks, and I was just kind of like, oh, COVID. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, and it's set in that kind of thing where Pearl's really kind of like said, but her dad's like paralyzed practically, and he's in a
Mhm,
wheelchair,
mhm,
and it's all, and they're
mhm.
on a farm, and Howard, who she's married to, is serving in the First World War, so
Yeah,
he's not
yeah.
even there, and like you say, yeah, her mum's this kind of German, and there's a great thing where it's
Mhm,
like, you know, German farmers have been kind of like chucked out the country to a point because
mhm.
the fact that they're at war with Germany in this time period,
Yeah,
which I'm
yeah.
kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, that's you didn't really kind of think about. I didn't really think about
Mhm,
that point when because she has this really strong German accent, and Pearl's just kind of
mhm.
very high pitch American-y, um,
Yeah,
all girl sort of vibe, and yeah,
yeah.
and you kind of get introduced to this very kind of fairylandish thing with the bright colors in your face.
Mhm,
I thought that was really fresh. I really kind of like that,
mhm.
especially how 'cause, like X is very dark. No, it's dark. It's more because it's set at night. A lot of it, like that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah, yeah, it's actual,
it's
yeah, it's not, yeah, I know what you mean.
but
Mhm,
Pearl's journey for this film is a real bit of a tragedy, and
mhm.
part of me wanted to go further back in her story because I
Okay,
was
okay,
really
interesting.
interested. Not saying that because like especially so there's like an amazing 6 7 minute monologue.
The monologue, oh, the monologue, Jesus, yeah.
Like I was sitting there
Yeah,
and I was going like, holy shit, how long is this going on for? This
yeah,
is incredible. Like just
yeah,
it's so
yeah.
like seamless and there is
Mhm.
like there is obviously cuts. I'm pretty sure there's not. It's not just a full 4 minute 6 minute monologue. I feel there maybe is a
Yeah, I'm sure,
cut.
I'm pretty sure it does not cut to,
It
what's her
cuts to
face,
her.
it does reverse. It cuts to
Yeah,
her
it does.
expression, does it
It,
not?
it does look
Maybe,
at
yeah.
her sister-in-law during it. So,
Mhm.
but she
Yeah.
does this monologue about how she basically discovered early on that she didn't have feelings in the same
Mhm.
way
Mhm.
that she thought, and how she basically kind of used Howard, so she thought she was going to get out of this place and all that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
these are the early seeds of this insanity and
Mm.
all that. And a
Mhm.
bit of me
Mhm.
was like, oh, I would have maybe loved like a, I don't know. I'm really happy with what we got because I really, really like Pearl. But a bit of me is like,
Yeah.
I feel this origin story is the third act of her
Mhm.
origin, where it's the snapping,
Okay. Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would have loved to have seen that kind of her kind of slowly kind of realize to herself because she does know herself. She just doesn't. She's just scared to
Mhm.
tell people about it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, the- it's the creepiness, her kind of not sex addiction, but
Mhm.
sex kind of. I don't even know what I would describe it.
Mhm.
Obsessiveness, right?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And it's the because you've got
For the
the
projectionist
interaction,
character,
the
the
projectionists who
David
uh,
Cornsweet, of course.
David Corns. Do you know what? It's weirdly, I
Yeah,
saw
no
his name and
Superman, yeah.
I was like, this is the first thing I've actually ever seen him in because I've never seen him in anything
There you
else.
go. And
And
he
I
looks like
was like,
Superman already in that, yeah.
he
Mm,
popped up on the screen.
mm.
I went, yeah, okay, I understand why he got the role. And he was, he had a really
Yeah.
he had an interesting part to play in this where
Mhm,
he was the kind of the victim that kind of gave support and sympathy to the girl chasing her
mhm.
dreams in this. And
Yeah. Yeah.
then there's a really bizarre scene with a scarecrow where
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, that was something, and it's just Mia Goth's performance in Pearl is. I was like, she's good in
Casting,
X.
acting are
Pearl,
she's good next she's fantastic in Pearl,
I
yeah.
was like, she's. I have to get her. She's fantastic in Pearl, and then
Mhm,
the mother, just the kind of whole back and forth and all the dinner scenes, and they're just the
mhm,
yelling and just the
mhm.
constant.
Yeah.
You have to do this, and even because obviously you kind of see that the mother isn't just like this to Pearl, she's like this with everybody else because Pearl's
Mhm,
sister in law and by extension, I'm guessing her mother in law, who are kind of a
mhm.
wealthier family because that's where Pearl wants to run away to, bring
Yeah.
this full roasted pig, like a full on pig,
Mhm. Yeah.
and they've been starving, and the mum's just refusing of it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
There's no need to be a dick, like
Yeah.
it's like
There's no need to
your
be a dick,
husband
yeah.
is by all accounts paralyzed for life. You're
Mhm,
struggling. Her son, who's married to your daughter, is away in the war. No idea if he's alive or
mhm.
dead or not because you just didn't know these things in 1918. She's delivering you a
Yeah.
very nice looking roasted pig that could feed you for weeks, and
Yeah.
you've just gone, "Nah, we're not
Nah.
charity." You can.
Yeah.
I
Spoke
was
about
like,
pride,
Pearl,
absolutely, yeah.
get on with her. And yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because it is like you
Mhm,
say, it is a tragedy story. There is no
mhm,
villain. The villain is her
mhm.
psychosis.
Yeah.
There
Her
is
psychosis,
just
really, yeah.
like, it was just a very sort shame that this week or
Mhm,
couple of days were
mhm.
the domino effects that led to her completely snapping because they
Yeah,
got
absolutely.
the kind of plot point of this thing is that there is a rehearsal audition for like a dancing troupe,
Yes.
and then she does a really kind of like just the dancing was fine, but it's Mia Goth's face during the
Yeah.
entire thing, who's just like
Yeah, it's very creepy.
her eyes just look like they
Creepy
could
cringe,
burst
yeah.
out at any second. And then
Uh-huh.
she says, "Yeah, no, that," and then it's just this downpour of just like she's already before that she's
Has this
already
massive breakdown,
chucked
yeah.
off a few people. By that point, yeah, it's absolutely madness. I
Mhm,
did say so. So this is what I was saying before. I was saying like I view both of these films as incredible. Like I genuinely think these are
mhm,
just two great horror films with different uniqueness.
mhm,
I think I've just got a softer
mhm.
spot for the classic slashery film of like that's probably
Of
why
X,
I
yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like X a bit more. But like I'm not saying
Mhm,
Pearl is like they're both
mhm.
here. It's just because my preference
Yeah.
and maybe viewing of
Uh-huh.
origin horror has been slasher that it just pushes it up
Mhm.
slightly. But my god,
That's
Pearl's
what it's
just
no,
yeah.
I completely get that. What's interesting with Pearls because I actually I think if I were to review them all on Fear Factor, I would say X probably to me is probably the scariest one.
Especially when
I
you
wouldn't
don't
say Matt.
know what
Uh,
it
uh,
is. I feel rewatching X,
yeah, 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 for sure.
it's like any
But
horror
like,
film, you know what's gonna be the villain.
Yeah, you kind of know what it's gonna kind of be. Pearl, that's what I mean. Pearl, I guess it's obviously got those horror elements, but for me, it's definitely more of like, it's more of just a really sad tragedy, and it's also one which you realize with Pearl is that the okay, of course she's got some psychosis, she's obviously
Yeah,
mentally ill, but there's also this darkness in her. And I remember she's saying to the projectionist earlier on, she's like, "Oh, why can't they just die?" And he's like, "What?" He's
yeah,
like, "Oh
to
no,
her
nothing. Didn't say
about her
anything."
parents.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but her parents as well. But even when she kills them and she's technically set free to do whatever she wants, um, you find her 70 years later still on that farm. She doesn't chase her dreams. It is that all sort of
I
that
mean,
whole
it's
like delusion is completely clouded over life.
yeah,
Although she fails the audition, she fails the troop audition, fine. But obviously she obviously can't accept the idea of like one form of rejection. She believes she's the best. And she doesn't go and pursue her dreams, even though she's technically set free from everyone because
yeah,
she's got rid
because
of everyone in her life.
there's
Uh-huh.
an interesting part that I thought about, like her wanting to get rid of her parents, and she
Hmm.
does. But then there's a kind of part where she then goes and hugs her mum's corpse for a wee bit and imagines her mum
Yes.
hugging her
Uh-huh.
back. And then at the end of
Hmm.
it, prepares a really nice meal and brings our corpses of her
Yeah.
dad and her mum into this room. And
Yeah.
it's a moment
Yeah.
of going, is she kind of low key regretting it? Or is she actually
Mhm.
kind of going, like, this is what I wanted. I wanted the family. I didn't want them
Mhm.
dead, dead. I wanted them dead as in they're
Mhm.
doing what I want them to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
And she kind
Yeah.
of, and
I
I
don't
mean,
know. Uh-huh.
what did you think of the
As
ending?
well, the end. That's what I was because like I wanted to bring that up as well because her sort of feeding the dead bodies and stuff, and like I was saying with her whole like she doesn't chase her dreams even though she technically is free because I feel like when she obviously she feeds all those dead bodies and obviously Howard comes back in and she does that grin that lasts like 3 minutes or something
My God, I watched
ridiculous.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was just like,
Yeah, it's like when does this end? It's because
whoa,
Ty West was talking about it and he was saying how originally he just wanted to make it like a freeze frame because old Hollywood golden age films a lot of them ended in freeze frames and people smiling and he just wanted to
yeah.
kind of do that. And he just like, okay, and Mia, I want you to smile, and we're just gonna keep it rolling for 10 seconds. So just keep that smile for like 10 seconds, and then I'll yell cut. But then he just like
He just didn't
keep
say
going, and
cut.
he never yelled
I
cut,
mean, you can
and she
see in
just
her
kept
face, like
doing
her
it.
face is
Uh huh.
struggling. Like
It's
by the end
breaking,
of it,
and
there
if
are
uh huh,
tears, and there's genuinely like
mm-hmm.
she can't keep it,
Pain,
and it's
yeah,
just because
and
obviously
it's
it's
it,
just
it
Howard just walks in
uh
and
huh,
sees us all,
yeah, yeah,
and
but
it's yeah,
it's like I was saying. Sorry, I kind of got lost off track there. With the whole fan thing, is her wanting to sort of keep that delusion going in a sense. You know what I mean? Where it's like if she just like wraps herself in this bubble of all she knows is the farm, and all she knows is looking after her mum and dad, and doing the farm work and making dinners and
yeah,
stuff like that. And so she's just sort of wrapped herself in that bubble with the idea of that I know I can be famous if I want to be, but
yeah,
she doesn't have the action to do it. Even though she's set free technically at one point in the
yeah.
film
No, she
before
is, she
Howard comes
is.
back, but she doesn't act on it.
It's see,
But yeah, I mean,
this is why I kind of
mhm,
want another one because
yeah,
I want to see
mhm,
why Howard stays. I want to know
yes,
why Howard
uh
ends
huh,
up protecting her,
uh huh,
feeding her. I want to know why
mhm,
Maxine ends up staying where she is because at
mhm,
the end it's such a just a sad death for the both of them because it's so quick and just
yeah,
they both
mhm,
just one night just go. There's no
yeah,
happy ending for
yeah,
either of them. Not that I don't
no,
think, especially Pearl, I don't think she deserves a happy ending for what she
mhm,
went.
yeah,
But like
uh huh,
I'm so intrigued about Howard. Like because I'm
mhm,
like, what happened to you during these 60
mhm,
years that ended
yeah.
up you feeding this?
Well,
Because
like you told me, rumor has it Ty West might do another
well,
one.
no,
So
yeah,
I
no,
think,
I
uh,
read it somewhere
mhm,
because I was just like I thought it was a trilogy and I saw a tweet and then you were talking to me about how your feelings of capping off this trilogy and I was like, is it? Because I was like, I'm sure I
yeah.
saw something to say, but
I think if they
should we
were to do
segue?
another one,
Hmm.
that would be the area to do it, like the 40s or 50s. That would be
I
the
think
area
it'd
to
be
do it for me.
great.
Mhm. Um, Right, okay, well, I'll review Maxine because you have not seen Maxine, so this is
No,
sort of
I'm not. So
the end the end of, or maybe it's not the end of the X franchise trilogy, whatever it wants to be. So yes, this is once again written, directed by Ty West, and Mia Goth is back playing the character of Maxine now, and we're here in
yes,
1985. So this is what 6 years after the events of X, right?
yeah,
Maxine
79.
has now made it to the top of the adult film, her adult film career. She's, reached the pinnacle. She can't really get any bigger than she already is in the adult film industry. So for her, she believed to move on to the film industry. And so we sort of get that at the beginning. The beginning kind of actually opens with a recording of a young Maxine from the 1950s with an instant visual reference to Pearl. If you've seen Pearl, you know exactly what I'll be talking about when the film opens.
Okay,
And then we sort of cut to her 1985 doing an audition for this film called The Puritan II, which is directed by Elizabeth Bendler, who's played by Elizabeth Debicki in this film, who's this very, very hard to impress, very sort of intimidating director figure who wants
yeah,
to make The Puritan II something more than a B movie. She says that she wants to make a B movie with AI ideas, is what she wants it to make it, right? Because The Puritan was sort of like a cult video hit. So Maxine does the audition, and she absolutely nails it, and of course gets the part. But meanwhile, she's also getting things, footages from her past is being mailed to her. She's being followed by someone, and meanwhile, in Hollywood right now, there is a killer called the Night Stalker who's killing adult film stars and other people connected to Maxine. So that is all I'll say about Maxine. Now, this is interesting with Maxine. Now I've seen it's quite heated. It's quite heated apparently. This film, people
yeah,
like X and Pearl have not been satisfied with this film. Um, I'll say this off the bat. Look, it's great to see Mia Goth back as
Maxine.
Maxine this time around. Sort of a it's interesting because obviously you have the Pearl character who wants to be famous so badly and was stuck in her life, and now you have Maxine who's kind of doing it, kind of living the life Pearl never had. And I mean, obviously there's parallels between Maxine and Pearl herself, and we're sort of seeing an alternate universe where like that character is starting to actually make it through her career. Um, Obviously there's differences in between Maxine and Pearl. Like Maxine, I guess, is more driven and sort of actually, well, not as deluded to a sense as Pearl, but she actually has some sort of drive to her and some sort of
Yeah,
fight to get out of where she was. Um, that being said, like I think everyone does well. I mean, I like Elizabeth Debicki's character. Kevin Bacon is like proper hamming it up as this private detective. Giancarlo Esposito's here as Teddy Knight, her agent, who's great to see when he's on screen. I really like Teddy in this film. But yeah, I think out the three, this obviously replicates sort of an 80s um, neon sort of video nasty style. But I think out the three, it's like the least stylistically interesting. I don't
hmm.
know. I just was like, yeah, it's like this is the 80s for
Is it?
sure. You kind of have that.
Would you
Uh,
describe it as a horror? Like to the point that
I
X
mean,
and
it's
Pearl
labeled
were?
as a horror, but I don't think it's scary at all.
Yeah,
And that's just me. I mean, I don't really think it's a very scary film. But I'm kind of of the sense where I'm like, Pearl was labeled as a horror. It has some gruesome kills and a creepiness to it, and but it's not really
Pearl was more very
scary.
psychologically thrillery
Yeah,
to
this
the
this obviously
more
is kind of carrying on the same vein as X, where it's definitely more slasher orientated and kind
right.
of dealing with all the sort of demonic paranoia of the 80s. It's dealing with like the proper slashery goriness of the 80s and like those straight to video, proper like culty, like like sort of like evil Christian and
Yeah.
satanic stuff. I
Well,
guess
right.
I mean, remember they talked about it in like Stranger Things. That was kind of a big thing with D and
I-
D and stuff. I mean,
I've
that's
got
sort
a
of kind of
question.
similar vein.
I
What's
know I
going on
don't know
here?
how
Yeah.
spoilery this is, but just because of like you
hmm
say Christian and Sponsky, does it continue
hmm
anything to do with that kind of reveal at the end of X that her family has
Well,
something to do
it
with
it
religion?
it I mean, like because it literally this is like how you can watch Pearl without seeing X and you can watch X without seeing Pearl.
Yeah.
You can't really watch this without seeing X. Like
Right.
it,
Okay.
it
That's
is a
that's okay. That's
continuation of that story.
right.
Um,
Okay.
like this is like a sequel to X. Like Pearl's kind of a weird thing where it kind of exists as in its own bubble.
Yeah.
This is like pretty much a direct sequel to X, dealing with like the events of that film coming back to haunt Maxine. But yeah, I just think it's the least interesting out of the three. I don't think what X and Pearl have to say about fame and delusions of grandeur and
Hmm.
the sort
Hmm.
of even like the industries of the time and what they're dealing with, like with the adult film industry of the 70s and sort of the sort of blossoming sort of genre that is becoming, and that sort of early 20s silent film vaudeville cinema going into like the talkies soon, and like that whole technicolor aesthetic that kind of brought in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have much more to say that those two films already said. Like I'm saying, like
Yeah, that's upsetting.
I don't think there's enough here to make to make it a full trilogy. I think this film was made because I guess look, there is places to go with Maxine's story, but it's just like, yeah, it's entertaining enough. Like
Hmm.
it's like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of with it for the ride, but when it's kind of said and done, and when you're looking back on it, you're like, it just doesn't really leave an impression like the other two
Yeah.
did, for me
So
personally. And it is kind of predictable, and
right.
it weirdly ends twice. It is a film that goes on 5 minutes
Okay.
too long for me.
Right.
It's
Okay.
I think the end because
What is
it's
the
so
runtime for this film? Because I know Pearl and X
it's
were
like
almost
it's
like very similar in runtimes.
yeah, this is an hour 40. I'm not saying it's
Right.
long or it feels long. It feels the length it feels. It doesn't feel long at all. I just mean they were going for something like you because something happened. Oh, well, I can't really explain it, but something happens and it goes into this thing that you think is the end. And you're like, oh, that's a pretty good way to end it. And then it goes
Mm.
on for another
And
five
then
minutes and then it ends again. And I'm like, why did you do that?
right. Yeah.
I
I
don't really get why they ended it that way because I think that the original ending they had would have made this film better for me because it's kind of weird because look, like we are talking about, they kind of have weird twisted senses of humor. The past two films, where the ending of this film kind of felt just a bit silly, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of what it was going to be, and it's just
mm,
like it's just a bit. It's not like it's not funny in the sense where it's like, oh, you're kind of going for that cheeky like dark humor. It's just like I get, films of the time kind of ended in these kind of ridiculous manners and
yeah.
had these sort of villains, but I was just like, it just feels a bit silly. Um, that sort of third act
That's a
climax,
shame.
and I know, and I'm like, okay, well, I thought it really could have been redeemed by what I thought was the ending, but then that's not the ending, and I was like, okay, uh, it's like entertaining. The performances are good. It's got a cool 80s aesthetic, but
Yeah.
out of the trilogy, it's definitely the weakest, and I'm gonna give Maxine a 6 out of 10.
That's
I'm
something. I
really
mean, I
looking forward to see
will.
what you
Yeah. No.
think of it.
I'm seeing it.
Uh,
I'm gonna see it either Sunday or Monday. I'm gonna see either
mhm,
one or two. Now, I just want to know
mhm,
because it's been a while, and I don't even know who did reviews of
mhm.
X and Pearl on this podcast. I don't know if
I th- we, I did. I think I
what
did. I think I
what
did
did
do
you
reviews of
give
those three
X and
films.
Pearl? Then just let's
I
rank the
gave
trilogy.
I gave well, it's Maxine X and Pearl, so 3, 2, 1 for me. I gave a Maxine a 6. I gave
Yep.
X a 7, but I think thinking back in that film, that'd probably go up. And I gave Pearl a strong 8 out of 10. I really liked
See,
Pearl. That was in my top 20 of last year as well.
I give
Uh,
X and Pearl both an 8. Like they're both solid
yeah.
eights in my head.
Mm,
I
uh-huh.
think it's just like I said, just a mild preference of horror
Mhm.
genres. I think X goes a wee bit
Yeah.
above, but purely on a character
Mhm.
performance wise, Pearl is
Mhm.
just unlike anything I've seen in a
Yeah.
while. So I
I
hopefully,
mean, I
yeah,
I really interested to see what you think of Maxine. 'Cause I actually
I
don't really
might
know what you
jo-
think of it. I really don't.
yeah,
Uh,
I'll
so
jump on,
I'll be interested to know.
give my 2 cents next time because I'll obviously see it before we next record.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
All
A
right,
quick, a
okay.
quick
A
Kyle
quick
thoughts on that.
Kyle
But
thoughts.
yeah, Kyle thoughts. Yeah, that
Right.
will wrap up today's show. So thank you, Kyle, very much for joining me.
Very welcome. Good time.
Yes. Yeah. On next week's show. So next week's gonna be a busy, busy week.
A busy
So
week.
me and Kyle are hopefully gonna get 2 episodes out next week. But I think a week today we'll hopefully have our reviews for The Boys season 4 and The Acolyte plus Long Legs, all coming out next Thursday. So stay tuned for those big reviews for these big projects.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot to talk about next week. But look, at the end of the day, we just gave our opinions on Maxxxine, Pearl, and X. Completely out of order, I just said that in, but whatever. But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.